This episode of the George Poulos podcast is brought to you by Dingbats Journals. So I have been purchasing the same exact Dingbats journal in different colors for years now. I write in them every single morning. There's a bunch of different colors. They're super cute. Most importantly to me, they feel really good. I love how it feels. I feel good writing in it. It unlocks like my writing capabilities because I just feel so comfortable. So until I start making my own journals, which I might do one day, I'm a ride or die on the Dingbats journals. If you want to pick yourself up a Dingbats journal to write in, make sure you use the link in the description or on the screen. This is not actually an official sponsor, so if you don't use that link, which gives me a small commission, I won't benefit from this in any way. So use that link, grab yourself a Dingbats journal. Let's get into the episode. All right, welcome back to the George Poulos podcast. This is my birthday episode. So I'm recording this on the 12th. My birthday is April 13th. I'm turning 26. This will likely be posted on my birthday. So, hey, birthday special. I am not planning this episode whatsoever. I've done a lot of completely unplanned episodes, but lately they have kind of had like a topic or a question that I wanted to focus on. And I may get into some questions and topics in this episode. I'm sure I will, but I'm using the birthday as an excuse to do whatever I want. And it's funny how I was just thinking about the fact that, like, why would I wait for my birthday to do whatever I want? It's almost like I'm using the birthday as an excuse to follow my intuition, when really the way of life that I'm trying to approach is about following my intuition every single day. You know, every single day I should act like it's my birthday in terms of just giving myself permission to be. Just to be exactly who I am, do exactly what I want. Why calculate anything? Why make these calculations about what I should be doing? It's interesting, you know? So this episode, you know, maybe it will feel a little different, less focused, more rambly. We'll see. I've got my decaf coffee. I dug this t-shirt out of my laundry because I'm a psychopath. I really wanted to wear it for this episode. I don't think I've worn the tie-dye t-shirt yet on this podcast. And spring is hitting out there. It's getting warm. It's like 80 degrees today. I know we have a pretty scattered worldwide audience on this podcast, but when spring finally like hits for real on the East Coast, I live in New York City, it is quite the phenomenon. Like, it's like we collectively come out of this long sleep of winter, and we're literally just like the flowers, just like the trees. I see all these buds exploding on the trees. Leaves are starting to erupt. Flowers are erupting. There's all this life and beauty and energy. The birds are singing. They're horny. And people are doing the same things. We're just suddenly exploding with energy outside, doing things, feeling more social. There's so much energy pulsating in the streets, and I'm embracing that fully. I've been getting outside. I've been taking my shirt off from the first warm day, frolicking in the park, putting my bare feet in the grass. It feels really, really good, and it's just it's like almost shocking in a way, because winter is so long that when you're really in the thick of winter on the East Coast, it's like it feels like that's what life is. And winter is also a time where I'll like slip off of my spiritual path, get really anxious, wonder what's wrong with me, and then all it takes is like that first like warm/hot spring day for me to be like, oh wait, life isn't always like this. It was just winter. I'm fine. Everything is great. Just another one of those cycles of life. And it's really a beautiful thing to experience and be a part of. And, you know, I've grown up on the East Coast my whole life. That's something that I've always appreciated. It was just the constant cycling of the seasons, and the seasons are like really dramatically different, and they all make you appreciate the next one. I know by the end of winter, I'm so ready for spring, but also by the end of summer, I'm like so ready for fall and winter. So it really kind of keeps you fresh in a way. And let me get some Wawa. Here's actually a thought I've had many times about the seasons. I'm kind of someone who right, I'm kind of obsessed with the seasons. I get very giddy when the season turns. Obsessed with fall. I love taking photos. And then again, when it turns to spring, I'm like obsessed. It's like incredible. It's like, whoa, look at all this energy that I feel in my body that's out there. I want to get out there, be a part of it. I want to take pictures of it. I know that when the season turns, I can actually, if I'm not careful, start to feel anxiety that like, oh my God, like I need to take advantage of it. Like I need to make sure I'm outside all the time. And that will actually induce attention because I'm like pressuring myself to make sure I'm taking full advantage of the season and like going outside all the time, when maybe at certain times like rest and even working on my computer is like what is being called for in my soul. So my perspective lately, like as spring hits, is like, just like allow it to happen. Like I don't have to do anything to like take advantage of the spring, like like I said, like these leaves are budding, the flowers are exploding. The same thing is happening. Like spring and the seasons in general are as internal a phenomena as they are external, right? It's happening inside of me. There's nothing that I have to do. Like there's nothing that I have to make myself do in order to like have a good spring summer. Like it's happening inside of me. It's here. It's inextricable, right? It's in my blood and bones. Spring is inside of me. I see it out there too, but I'm a part of everything, right? I share this analogy once in a while. Like I think about the earth, right? The earth was born out of the universe somehow. All the grass, the plants, the flowers, the animals, and the humans were then born out of the earth. We're all these little offshoots. That's actually an insight I had on my first mushrooms trip. I was looking at the grass, seeing how each piece of grass is like this little offshoot of the earth. And I felt that we are the same. We are these offshoots of the earth. We're inextricable from the whole. We just happen to have mobility and we happen to have freedom of thought, so we can think about what our purpose is here. And since we have all this mobility, we can have existential crises about what we're meant to be doing here. And we can have these feelings that we're separate from everything. But at the core of the truth, we are just like the grass, the flowers, the plants, the trees. So there's no need to get into a manic rush about, I gotta, make sure I'm outside all the time, soaking in every moment of sun. No, it's like, it's still spring, even when I'm sitting here in my apartment, doing some work by my window, still spring, right? There's no way to miss spring. It's impossible. Okay, so an idea that I talk about a lot on this podcast, and that also comes up a lot in my life because it deals with how we relate to people. And this is like, right, after my spiritual awakening, this is how I think relating with people is supposed to be. And it just keeps coming up in my life. So I want to really make this very clear how I feel about this, and show myself by saying it so clearly that this is what I believe. I don't think we are meant to control anybody in this world. Not our family, not our friends, not our lovers. I think that the way that we truly love all of these people, friends, family, lovers, is by utterly setting them free. And that means not having any model that we impose on them for who they're supposed to be. I believe one of the common models that we tend to impose on other people is an expectation that they will share their time, energy, and attention with us. But, if I think about all the lovers I've had throughout my life, and when I say lovers, I don't just mean my romantic relationships. I mean everyone I've connected significantly with. I mean all of my friends from high school, my romantic relationships from high school, all of my family members, even everyone that I've had a profound connection with across the internet, right? If I think about all of these lovers throughout my life, it's just not realistic to expect all of these people, right, to like stay in touch with me. Like everyone's on such a crazy, crazy journey, right? And but when there's an absence or a lack of self-love, there's a temptation when someone's journey does get close to yours, there's a temptation to want things from them, to expect them to reach out to you a certain amount, to pay a certain amount of attention to you, to fulfill certain check boxes, certain social obligations, right? If you just think of what it means to be a friend in your mind, or what it means to be a romantic partner in your mind, you might sort of actually have this list of check boxes in your head of what that person needs to fulfill in order to satisfy that label for you. My way is no check boxes, right? No checklists at all. Everybody is a completely unique individual. And if there's a shared dance of energy, it's just a dance, and they don't need to continue dancing with me for a certain amount of time. It is what it is, right? The universe does all of this. All of these relationships, if you think about all the beautiful relationships you've had in your past, friends, family, lovers, acquaintances, you can't possibly, speaking from my own part, you can't possibly think that your sense of control is what led to all of those relationships. No, so many of them just happened, right? That's the workings of the universe, in my opinion. And the workings of the universe will continue to happen, right? Like, I'm no longer in close proximity with all of my lovers from the past, right? So many are on their various journeys out there in the world. And I still love them, even though we're not right here next to each other anymore, right? Our journeys have space between them. We're on different journeys. And even the people who, right, our journeys for whatever reason have all led to a similar place. Maybe we're all living here in New York City, doing similar work. We're on the same wavelength in our minds. That's a now sensation, right? And I don't believe in imposing a sense of control that these people must remain nearby on their journeys. Because what if their journey goes out here or out here? Who am I to say, like, you must remain close to me in order to be a good friend? No, it's like, I love you. I accept you. Wherever you need to go, that's beautiful. And I will always love you, right? Like, this is really my perspective. And this keeps coming up in my life because, as I've shared in the love and dating episode, like, I tend to be the one just going on this crazy journey, just all over the place. Like, I'll get very close with people and then it will drift. And I'm not really one to cling on anymore post spiritual awakening, right? I'm not really one to cling on anymore when natural space starts to occur. I kind of just let it happen. And I've noticed that people tend to get like offended by that. They think I don't like them. They cling on, right? And, I get it because I used to be the same way, but it's like, how can you expect someone's journey to continue unfolding in a particular way that like satisfies whatever it is your needs are, Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you just let the dance unfold, as one relationship goes off in another direction, immediately space opens up for a new one to come in. So that clinging is like not necessary. This is a radical view on how to relate to people, right? Like the model that I grew up with, that probably most of us grew up with, is that you got to hit off certain check boxes in order to be a good friend, in order to be a good partner, in order to be a good family member. The thing about if you can get right here to this present moment, there's no time or space to think about these calculations like, oh, I got to hit these boxes to make sure I'm being a good friend or a good partner. There's no time for that. It's just authentic, spontaneous action. And it's a trust in the universe. It's just a trust in the universe. And I think maybe there's a lot of fear that when you choose to relate in this way, that relationships will just disappear. But I want to offer you the possibility, which I have experienced in my life, that when you start to relate in this more free, playful, non-controlling way, that's when true relating actually begins to open up for the first time. Because before you open yourself like that, when you're controlling and making sure you're doing things to make sure you keep all your friends and relationships, it's kind of like this fabrication of ego. You're doing these things that makes you feel good about having these relationships. It's not really authentic. It's calculated. And worse, if you're like calculating what you need to do in order to like remain in good standing, right? Let me rephrase that. If you're calculating what you need to do in order for another person to like you and accept you as a good friend or as a good lover, then you're kind of manipulating them, right? I've talked about this in when I've mentioned people pleasing. It's like people pleasing is a form of manipulation because you're not being honest. You're faking your behavior to get another person to like you. That is manipulating. That is manipulation, and it's dishonest, right? The truly loving way to be would be to just be yourself, even if that person, even if it doesn't work for them, because then you're allowing the universe's plan to play out, right? Distance will be created. Space will be opened up for both people to find more aligned people in their lives. As I sink deeper and deeper into this view, and so few people around me understand, sometimes my ego panic kicks back in and I'm like, oh, I'm going to lose all my friends. But then when I look back on my life, I've always kind of been this way, right? Like after high school, I just moved on, and I never stopped loving those people, but I just moved on and opened myself to the college experience. And the same thing happened after college. I just moved on and I opened myself up to this new experience that I was meant to have in New York City. And I still loved all of those people, but that space opened up and I found all these new beautiful people, beautiful relationships, beautiful experiences. And I'm not clinging to those either. And I don't really see the need to cling because there's such an abundance of beautiful relationships out there to be had, right? It's like I think the tendency to cling has got to be rooted in the sense of scarcity, right? Maybe a fear that if you lose a particular relationship or a particular friendship, that space will not be filled. But I assure you, it will be filled. And the more you trust that comes down to the law of attraction again. If you actually start to believe this, it will happen even faster. That space will be filled. There really is a non-ending flow of abundance in terms of really everything you can think of. But in this particular case, relationships, it does not end. So I really believe that, and if there even arises a need to cling, that's also gotta mean that when it comes down to the natural flow and expansion of the universe, space is starting to happen, right? If that space wasn't starting to happen, there wouldn't really be a need to cling because there would be such a closeness anyway. So really clinging to me shows a resistance of what is happening, right? And so much of this spiritual path that I'm on is just a pure and utter acceptance and embrace of what is happening. And an acknowledgement that our ego is very, very small and cannot see the bigger picture. But the bigger picture is still there. It's happening, right? You could call the bigger picture the river. And if you just stop swimming upstream, stop resisting things, you're still going to live. Beautiful things will happen. You're just going to be flowing with the current of life or with the current of the universe. So it's going to be much less painful, much more beautiful, much more easygoing and peaceful. And joy is still there. Love is still there. Relationships are still there. Career is still there. Creativity is still there. It's all still there. There's just no more resistance, and there's a much deeper acceptance of change and things and people and your own self changing and moving on. This is one of my core philosophies, and I think why it's so important to me is because of where we are in this culture. Our relationships with people is like everything, right? It's like the bread and butter of how we feel. You know, not 100%. Like I would also say creativity is a huge part of it. Relationship with self is a huge part of it. You know, maybe a relationship with self is everything and relationships with others are just a reflection of relationship with self. We could go down that road. But all I'm trying to say is relationships are huge. They're huge for us. And I'm telling you, really, you don't have to listen to me at all. And this keeps coming up, like I'm speaking my heart out on this podcast, and I think a lot of people see the clips and basically think I'm like preaching to them. Actually, all I'm doing is talking to myself. I'm like voicing out the things that I am feeling in my heart. This is all for me, and I am telling the truth in the way that like this certainty you hear from my voice, it's coming from my own experience of what I have actually seen and experienced. So for me, I know that it's true, right? And I think it's going to work for a lot of you, but I don't think many people, I think a lot of people are scared to give this particular take on relationships a chance because of that fear that you're going to lose your relationships, lose everything. That's an ego fear, in my opinion. Not even my opinion. I know, like, right? I feel like I know. But again, I'm not trying to preach. I'm not trying to say you have to do this. I'm just offering a perspective that I think if you took, you might find is pretty amazing, as I have found. It's really, really, really safe to relate freely with our friends, with our family, with our lovers. More often than not, if you just drop all the clinging and all the control, while some of those relationships will drop away because maybe they were based in more shallow ego things, so many of those relationships you will see had a deeper form of connection all along. And when you drop the rules, when you drop the clinginess, that deeper bond still remains and you end up still relating. And it's in a much more loving, free way. I can't tell if I'm going crazy, but I swear like my voice, do I sound like, am I developing a lisp? Or am I just thirsty? Just thirsty. I've talked about like health and body anxiety on this podcast before, and I guess this is my new one. That like I found this beautiful form of expression and I'm just going to like lose the ability to talk. Do my S's, am I just dehydrated? I got to calm down, buddy. Okay, sometimes when I like come out of Lotus because I need to stop the camera, I'll quickly do it, and this leg, my left leg, will be completely asleep, and I'll almost eat shit. Oh yeah, like I gotta limp like very carefully so I don't fall. All right, since we're talking about relating to people, I'm going to answer a few questions that I got about friends, boundaries, etc. So here's one from TikTok. What's your advice on how to calm anger you have in your body after being triggered by someone you're forced to be around due to work or family? So before I answer the question, how do you calm? So someone triggers you and there's anger in the body. How do you calm that down? Before I answer that, if something is repeatedly happening in a relationship that's causing anger inside of you, it's extremely likely that a boundary needs to be set, right? What are they doing that is causing the anger? And can you set a boundary to prevent that from happening? For example, is someone being a dick to you every day and it's causing you anger? Set a boundary and refuse to tolerate that behavior, right? And if you need help setting boundaries, I highly recommend the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Right? So I don't know your particular situation, and ultimately you need to trust your intuition. But if you are with this person repeatedly and the boundaries are being disrespected, I almost like can't say, I'm like, at a certain point you have to create distance, you know? Then what I would say is immediately when the anger starts arising, just notice that anger is arising. That's like the most profound step that you can take, because immediately you're not allowing the anger to suck you in. You're remaining in your calm center in the observer seat, and you're observing, this anger is arising in my body because of this situation. I wonder what this is about. This is essentially the act of meditating, right? When something triggers you, instead of getting roped into it, you just sit there and you observe and you get curious about it. And you dig deeper into it in that way. Just let the discomfort, let the trigger just be right there. And just observe it and bore into it with your attention. Go deeper into it. See if you can find the root. What is this triggering deep down inside of me? Is there some wound I experienced in the past that I haven't healed yet that is being reopened by this scenario, right? That's what I would do. And in Buddhism, there's a distinction between reaction and response. Reaction is when you just get angry and you immediately react to it, right? And you're probably meeting that other person at that low vibration when you react. A response is when you maintain awareness and then you respond in the way that you ought to respond, right? Without reacting out of your past unconscious conditioning and patterns. A response is an awareness. I see that this person acted in this way. It triggered me in this way. This relates to these patterns of my past. And then you respond. How do you strike a balance between setting a boundary and letting someone be completely themselves? The main thing that I have to say is setting boundaries is how you allow someone to completely be themselves. Setting boundaries is how you accept someone totally for who they are, right? Setting a boundary does not mean you are rejecting who someone is. You're actually giving them permission to continue on being who you are, just not in my presence because it's hurtful to me. Right? So in that way, setting a boundary is the ultimate act of self-love. It's the ultimate act of loving and accepting another person for exactly who they are. Setting boundaries are truly an act of spirituality in that way. But now, let's take this a little deeper into a little bit of a different scenario. Let's say someone's in your vicinity and they're just doing their dance, right? They're just being a free, autonomous person. They're just doing their dance. They're just dancing through life the way that they want to dance through life. And they're in your vicinity in life for whatever reason. If they're not trying to control you, if they're not directly hurting you, and you're being triggered by them doing their dance that is in no way interfering with your life and your ability to be autonomous and free and loving, in that case, maybe boundaries are not the answer. Maybe it's not like, get out of my sight, like I don't want to see you, like you're too happy, it's triggering to me. In that case, then I think the answer would be internal work, right? Meditate on why you're being triggered by this person's joy and freedom and love. You understand what I'm saying? But when what that other person is doing crosses into our territory, they're hurting us, they're abusing us, that's when the boundaries need to be set, right? And if someone is doing their dance and we're free to do our dance next to them, that's when we can accept someone for who they are and just continue to dance next to them. And you don't even really need to set boundaries until a situation comes up where you do. And then, I'm telling you guys, there are people who will just accept your boundaries and you can continue to get to dance together. And sometimes when the boundaries cannot be accepted, it's simply the way that the universe is ushering you apart. And you have to trust that process radically. When you love yourself completely, it is incomprehensible to remain with someone who does not respect your boundaries. It is completely, it just will not happen. So if someone is crossing your boundaries, disrespecting you, and you're just taking it and getting hurt and getting put down, it's gotta be because you feel like you need that person to fulfill something in you. And that's where you gotta meditate and think, where am I lacking in self-love? Where can I fill my cup more on my own, right? The dance of relationship when you're coming from a completely full cup is so beautiful because nobody needs anything from anyone else. It's literally just a dance. A dance of human energy, a dance of freedom, a dance of love. And if someone steps on your foot while they're dancing, set a boundary. Say, hey, don't step on my foot again. And people who have done this sort of internal work, no question, I won't step on your foot again. And then you can just continue right on dancing next to each other. So setting boundaries. And then if someone's like, no, I'm going to keep stepping on your foot, I am by no means saying that to accept them, you have to let them keep stepping on your foot, You say, okay, I accept who you are. You're a person who wants to step on people's feet, but you can't step on my feet because I love myself. So I accept who you are. You can go on being you, but not in my presence, right? I hope that came out right. All right. I think that's it for this episode. I enjoyed the free flow of it. Happy birthday to me. Birthdays are funny. I was going to talk more about birthdays. I know I hit on it a little bit at the beginning, but it's funny. I have some entanglements there. I start to feel all this anxiety on my birthday that, like, you know how I said, like, like for this episode, for example, I'm just like I'm using the birthday as permission to just be intuitive and just live in the moment and do what feels right instead of calculating how this episode should go. Something I do around my birthday that's antithetical to that is I start to worry, like, oh, how do I make sure this is a good birthday, right? And I start to plan things that by the time I get closer to them, I'm like, I think I planned that just because I felt like I had to because of this label of birthday. It's interesting. I'm definitely going through something with like plans. As I sink into the intuition, I'm like, plans are an interesting one. Especially on the birthday. It's like there's some neurotic stuff in there. I'm like, oh, I have to invite all these people and it has to be a great time and I have to do something special, and and that entanglement kind of goes away if you take what I said at the beginning and just treat every day like your birthday and just do everything intuitively all the time. Then you're just always flowing with whatever you want. And then there's no special day where you have to make it so good because you finally have an excuse to do whatever you want. If you just always do whatever you want, you're always doing whatever you want. And if you're existing in the present, it is impossible to do something you don't want to do. It's purely impossible because there's no time to make that calculation. You're just operating. Don't forget the journal and the Patreon are in the description. Your support goes a long way in allowing me to continue this form of expression. I greatly appreciate all your presence here with me. As always, your questions are more than welcome. I love how you all have been guiding this podcast. Namaste and have a beautiful weekend.